What's up and welcome back to the channel. The name is Ninja Knight. Make sure you like, share, subscribe and hit the notification bell up above for future uploads and check out the link posted down below. Thank you. So here I have an article from the Hollywood Reporter and their exclusive is Harry Potter live action TV series in early development at HBO MAX. Now this is something that I've talked about on a previous live stream, that I would be very interested in seeing a Harry Potter TV series, particularly if it was going to follow the story of the books. At this moment in time, we don't know who is developing this and we don't know what time in the Harry Potter franchise this is focusing on. Is it before Fantastic Beasts? Is it after? Is it before the books, after the books, or during the books? Is it utilising the books? Personally, I think the best thing that they could do is they could utilise the books. I think that there was a lot of information that was left out of the movies that is so important within the series that got totally overlooked, particularly towards the end. And I've always felt that in Order of the Phoenix, for example, it certainly there was an awful lot revealed and an awful lot that wasn't revealed and semi-revealed that has a long-lasting impact going forward. I also thought Half-Blood Prince was okay, and I certainly think that after Goblet of Fire, there was an awful lot of liberties taken, and I think it didn't end quite as well as I thought it would. There was a lot of liberties taken in Prisoner of Azkaban and in Goblet of Fire that I think that a TV series could adapt far better. I think that those are phenomenal books, and I think when you look at some of the later movies particularly, there's an awful lot of stuff that doesn't add up. Like for example in Prisoner of Azkaban, it's so important as to Ron Weasley being in Egypt. The picture that Sirius Black sees, he recognises that Scabbers is Peter Pettigrew, and that is why he breaks out. That is the only reason why he goes out of Azkaban. Otherwise he was happy enough to stay where he was, which sets in motion the events that happen. You then look back then, for example, within that movie in itself, at the Marauders map. Why is that important? Well, that is a direct link between Remus Lupin, James Potter, Peter Pettigrew, and then you have Sirius Black that's linked into that one. So that's why that map is so important, and then becomes an important device then as they move forward. These are things that are overlooked within the movies, and I think that when you look at, for example, Voldemort and the portrayal of Voldemort within the movies, you have to get a sense then, particularly with the books, that he was a very unwanted individual and was bandied from place to place. Very similar in a way to Harry Potter. And you then see the different progression and parallels between those two men even more so. And Voldemort in the books at times can become such a pitiful character that you really do pity his existence and you pity what he went through. Whereas in the movies he's just a quintessential bad guy and you don't feel sorry or any sort of remorse for him whatsoever. And it's very easy then for him to become this kind of mustache twirling villain, and there's no sort of human in behind that at times. And that's no dig at the performance that is given by the great Ray Fiennes. He's a fantastic actor and I think he's a brilliant Voldemort, but I think when you're looking at a TV series you can explore so much more, and I think that's the way I want to bring attention to it. I think that there is parts of this that should focus before the film, particularly before Sorcerer's Stone or Philosopher's Stone, depending on where you live. I think they should focus on James Potter, Sirius Black. I also think that you should have some interaction between Severus Snape, and I think then you should have that group of individuals like Remus Lupin and some of the history that he has factor into this series. Now, whether you want to do a sort of mini-series beforehand or whether you want to factor this into the overall series, I think would be an even better idea to spotlight some of the characters, and certainly you could use up a lot of time doing that. I mean, Remus Lupin's history and Sirius Black's histories are both very interesting and very in-depth, and I mean you could make a whole series I suppose on Voldemort alone with what he went through and what he goes through within the books and see certain things from his angles. There's other things that would concern me about this though, and that is the fact that studios at the moment are looking for money, they're looking for easy ways to do things, and they are very much so on this woke SJW bandwagon. I think if you're getting a TV series, particularly from HBO Max, and I mean this is a company that is definitely going woke and it's gonna go broke, because some of the ideas that they have and the sort of switching in terms of casting already that they've done within some of the movies is absolutely mind-bogglingly stupid. And I think I would be very much so within reason of saying prepare yourself for a very radical alteration of one if not more characters within the series. It's something that some of the SJWs, particularly on Twitter, want to get at in terms of there aren't a certain group within this movie or not portrayed within this group, or there's not enough of this and enough of that. And over the last couple of years we've seen J.K. Rowling that has certainly come under direct assault from these individuals on Twitter. Now, whether the company decide to work with J.K. Rowling in this and really respect our wishes and respect the books remains to be seen. We've already seen companies starting to distance themselves from her, particularly with the video game. So this sets a very dangerous precedent in terms of you actually have the individual that is responsible for creating these characters and this fantastic world now kind of be shunned and pushed out and shunted for an ideology and weirdness then to grab a hold of this fantastic series. And that is one of my deep concerns with this series, that it could go down that route. It has all of the abilities to go down that route, particularly because HBO MAX seem to be at this moment in time wanting to drive this sort of stuff home. We've seen this sort of weird release of Wonder Woman 1984, very strange. We're seeing some other weird projects that are coming into HBO Max. We're seeing contracts given to certain individuals that certainly are very much so not interested in terms of what fans want to see. Do you want to see a good product? Do you want to see a product that represents the characters and accurately represent the characters? I wouldn't be shocked if you've seen some major changes within this series if it does follow the books. I can only imagine what they do. I mean, look at the change that they made, particularly in the cursed child towards Hermione. Very strange change to make, and to me, that's something that they could very much so do within these movies. And I think if it's anybody's going to get it, it's going to be Ron Weasley. I think Ron Weasley is going to be the one, and the Weasley family overall are going to be the ones. If they're going to alter anything heavily, it's going to be them. Because when you look at the character and you look at, I think it's 25 plus characters now that are white with red hair, be radically altered. I wouldn't be shocked if it's the Weasleys and they try to alter them into something else. Another thing that I would have a deep concern about this series is because they have seen a enjoyment of, say, the Kingsman films and the Kingsman movies, are they going to try and modernise Harry Potter? As you can see from the Harry Potter movies, they are very much so, I would say, when you look at them in a way, dated. They are supposed to be set during the 90s. But I think that is something that HBO might look at and they might say, HBO Max might look at and say, we need to modernise this, this type of nonsense, and we need this and we need that. And that could start an awful lot of messing within these movies, and it could, and particularly in this series and TV series and books, it could really set the fans ablaze and really put an awful lot of walls up before there's even any sort of interest within this start. They have to be incredibly careful about what they're going to do. They have a beloved property on their hands. It's one of the most beloved properties that's been at Universal for an awful long time in terms of the theme parks that's there. They make one error with this, it's done. And I'm not saying this lightly. Look at what's happening to Star Wars, for example. They have been on extremely shaky ground for a number of years. Seem to have had one sort of decent hit now with The Mandalorian, and they're going back to type now of like basically just spitting in the faces of fans, and that's not what fans want. And this is at a dangerous precedent at this moment in time in terms of if they decide to go forward with this and decide to mess with certain characters, the hardcore fans are out. I mean, look at some of the hardcore fans, for example, that were upset about Daniel Radcliffe's eyes not being a certain colour, and we do hear about that an awful lot in the movies. He had the same colour eyes as his mother. People didn't like the fact that was changed. They didn't like the fact that certain other things were changed. I mean, they changed even the way the werewolf looked, for example, for Remus Lupin, because Alfonso Cuarón, I think at the time, decided, well, we want to make him look emaciated and totally different than what was in the book. That drew backlash as well in itself. So if you decide to radically alter characters here, I don't think they're prepared for what Potter fans are going to do in terms of just not purchasing it or not supporting it whatsoever. And that's where I'm drawing the point back on J.K. Rowling. If she gives this her blessing and there's alterations made and there's compromises made, I don't think an awful lot of fans are going to want to tune into this. As I said, I think this stands at good footing at the moment, that this is a guaranteed hit if they do it right. And I think that's what HBO Max need to understand and they need to do. I would totally discount what's happened in the movies beforehand. I wouldn't want to link it in with Fantastic Beasts. I would set this as a series on its own that is, I would say, accurately as much as possible following the books and just the books. If you want to do something that sort of flashback scenes, which I think would be a good idea for the likes of Severus Snape, Remus Lupin, Sirius Black, characters like that, I think would be a very good idea. Voldemort being another one, and very much so going into depth on some of these characters, I think that would be a very good idea. What I think they need to do is they need to cast correctly, and I'm going to do a fan cast in another video of who I'd like to see in certain roles and why. I think that is very important, that what they do in terms of that. I think you need to honour the legacy of Harry Potter. I think that this is a good step. I think that this is the company as well showing that they need money. If they need money, they're going to have to do it right. If they don't do it right, you're going to turn fans off way easier and a lot quicker. You have an iconic property now that still stands today. It takes one issue to make a mess of it. And what happens with companies as well too, by the way, is everything that you know and love about Harry Potter at the moment in terms of the iconic materials that you can purchase now, the likes of the uniforms, the brooms, all of the different types of memorabilia, the way Hogwarts Castle looks now in Orlando, for example, whether that reopens to full capacity ever again, they will radically alter to what they now know. I mean, look at Galaxy's Edge, for example, and what they did there. They made an absolute mess of that in terms of they should have went and looked at the original trilogy or even the original 6 and built a story out of that rather than trying to go with the sequel trilogy, which absolutely backfired in their faces. And that's why you're seeing the likes of Disney now pivot and say, okay, we're going to give you some woke stuff, but we're going to give you Boba Fett and we're going to give you season 3 of Mandalorian, and they're hoping that that will appease fans. That was the predicament Harry Potter's in at the moment, and Harry Potter's already slipped in a way with Fantastic Beasts with the treatment of a certain individual that's playing Grindelwald, if you understand what I'm talking about, because certain places don't like you talking about the actor themselves. And then you have then, for example, Mads Mikkelsen that's come on board basically like a scab, knows what happens in that situation and has come on board now. And for me, I've no interest in seeing Fantastic Beasts 3, zero whatsoever. You've had Jude Law kind of speak up rather than actually say what he thinks. I would have liked to see Jude Law step up and say, look, I'm not being part of this anymore. I don't agree with what happened there. And that is just the way it is. He's a big enough actor to be able to do that and hold that sway. Did he stand up? No. And that's what happens. You know, you're hearing about that certain actor going, and I mean, it's terrible. You can't even say the actor's name without certain places being upset by it. There's talk of Robert Downey Jr. bringing that actor on board for Sherlock Holmes 3, so he's going to work with Jude Law again. Why wouldn't Jude Law step up with him? And it's very strange in itself. I think going back on Harry Potter as a TV series, very good opportunity now for them to not make a mess of it. Very good opportunity for them to start with book 1, do a whole season on book 1, a whole season on book 2, 3, 4, you get the gist of it. Certainly then bring in the histories of these characters, and you're going to have an awful lot of characters in this that will appeal to a lot of different people, and I think that is the best thing about this. And I think when you look at the characters themselves, there's so much that's going on behind the scenes with some of these characters that didn't really get fleshed out in those movies that I think could really get fleshed out in a TV series if done correctly. They need to get things right in terms of casting. First of all, they need to get the right people on board. I constantly sing his praises, but I think he's someone that might be a very good idea for this type of series. I think Guy Ritchie would be really good as a helmer of this series. I think he gets British humour. He really does. And then he's certainly not afraid then to get into more adult themed stuff. And as we know with the Harry Potter movies, they grow as they move along with the audience, and that's something that's very important. And I think that that's something that Guy Ritchie's able to show. He showed it with Aladdin, for example, that he can do kind of childlike stuff, and then he can move on then and do The Gentleman, which is very much so adult orientated, fantastic stuff. And then I think he gets this whole idea then of what it's like, and I think he would be a very good choice as a showrunner for this. That's another thing that's very important with this one. If you're deciding on a showrunner for these series, it's very important that they get the right person. You look at, for example, some of the individuals that Marvel Studios have gotten as showrunners and have instantly annoyed fans. You need someone that's going to be in there that seems like an average Joe themselves, and that's going to run this show, I think, as best as possible. Would I be opposed to the likes of maybe Daniel Radcliffe helping to run the show? I think I wouldn't be opposed to that. I think that he'd be an individual that would very much so be respectful of it. He talks at length of how much he loved the series and doing the series. I don't think he would disrespect it in any way. He could possibly be a showrunner. Maybe you could have all three as showrunners. Maybe Rupert Grint and maybe Emma Watson. Maybe give her less of a voice because some of the stuff that she's been saying over the last couple of years has been pretty much out there. But I think when you look at this though, they need to get someone in there as a showrunner that loves the books, that loves accuracy. Would you go then with creature designers? Who would you go with? I would go with maybe, I think Guillermo del Toro has a very specific way of looking at things. I think he would be quite good as a creature effects specialist. Alfonso Cuarón is one of his guys, and that's someone that came on then and really did give a reinvention to some of the characters and the way they looked. Would you like to go that heavy though in terms of that design, or would you like to keep it sort of more conservative in terms of what the books were like? Depends on which way you want to go. I think J.K. Rowling has to have a big say in this. Would I be opposed to her as showrunner? Absolutely not. I think that would make a very good statement as well too if they decided to go with JK, because I think a lot of fans would trust in her work. They would trust in what she wants to do, and you can't really argue with the author of the books if she is putting her neck on the line for this TV series. Will they do it? We'll wait and see. We've seen that she's been trending again now due to this happening, and people are unhappy. And when I say people, a vocal minority of SJWs on the internet are unhappy about it. These aren't people that purchase the merchandise. These are not people that purchase the books. These are not people that pay to see this material. They're constantly offended, constantly sad, constantly harassing individuals like this. And I think what would be best for the company to do is to not think about that. Look at the people that love the series. Listen to people, for example, like myself, who's a fan of the books. Bring people on board that love the books. Bring people on board that want to make it accurate to the books as much as possible, and then go from there. And I think if you have a very good fourth season, you will have a lot of goodwill. I would hope then with a second season that they don't decide to go into certain realms and agendas which some series want to do. They want to make allusions to certain individuals in the real world. It doesn't need that. I don't think Harry Potter needs to be modernised. I don't want to see it modernised. I think that they could still set it in the 90s and make it different enough that it would be different enough if they made it accurate to the books to go and do that. In the next video that I'm going to do in relation to this topic, I'm going to do a fan cast of who we would like to see as some of the more prominent members of this cast. I'd love to hear from people in the comments below of maybe would you like younger actors for certain roles, or would you like to see age appropriate roles being given to certain individuals, for example like Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall. I certainly have my own thoughts in relation to what they could do with some of those characters and what they could do with some of the actors, and I'm going to post that in the video. I'm also going to take into account where the characters are from, and I think that this is something that I would like to see, particularly in this series. There's some characters that are within these movies that don't speak and sound like where they're from, and I think for a lot of people, when they get a very good vivid picture in the books of who these characters are and what they sound like. For example, I mean, I'm from Dublin. I think Brendan Gleeson did a phenomenal job as Professor Moody, but I don't quite think that a Scottish character should have a voice as if he's from Dublin. If anything, I think Brendan should have done a Scottish accent, and I mean it's very apparent then when you see it then in the movies when he's actually wearing a kilt. So it's quite strange when you look at that, because again, he's a Scottish character and then he has an Irish accent in itself. I thought that was always quite strange. So I'm going to bear that in mind. Now, we do understand, and I mean, I'm not like any of those people out there that are saying you have to be a certain way to play these roles, but I think if I'm trying to get a certain accent right, I think sometimes that's a good idea. There are going to be some actors that are going to be not quite so the same accent as these characters, but I think that I would trust in their ability to pull off those accents. It's something that David Thewlis talked about beforehand as Remus Lupin, that he also felt that it was very difficult for him to speak as Remus Lupin, to sound intellectual and to sound very educated, because he felt that his Mancunian accent was going to be something that would have deterred from that. And I have to say, I think David Thewlis is a top-notch actor. He did a fantastic job as Remus Lupin. He's one of those characters that really stands out, and I think even JK herself has said that on multiple times, that he is one of her favourite characters. And I think even within the movies, when you see, you know, certain characters, I'm not going to spoil it, but the way characters end in the series, in the movies, I don't think they were given enough time or anything like that either. And I think that there wasn't enough, it was too much condensed, I think, as the movies went on, rather than giving us exactly what we needed. And I think a series is going to do that. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you excited to see a Harry Potter TV series? Do we want to see something set before the movies? What if it's a Voldemort show? I think that could be quite interesting if it's going to follow the rise of Voldemort and how he gains the Death Eaters around him, and then maybe press on then into a TV show then about Harry Potter and kind of nearly like a sequel. I think that could be a good idea. When you're looking at HBO Max doing things like this, I think the writing's on the wall now when you see them going for an IP like Harry Potter, that they realise, I think now, that they're going to have to shift and they're going to have to do TV series, because I think the movie industry is now understanding that it's done. I think when you're seeing movies that are going to happen in the future, I think a lot of them have already been greenlit and they're too far into production now. I think in the next year or so, especially when they have time now to sit back and look at it, they're going to say, okay, TV series is of everything. The TV series landscape has never been stronger either, in terms of people are very much so interested in binge watching, or definitely going week to week on certain TV series. And I think Harry Potter certainly lends itself to it. You're seeing an awful lot of companies now that they want the next Game of Thrones, and what better, I suppose, books could you use than the Harry Potter books that have been accurately in some ways depicted, but could be even more accurately depicted in a TV series with a lot more time. And I think a lot more people will grow more attached to certain characters and understand those characters' motivations within a TV series than they would in a movie. So I think this is interesting to see. Let me know your comments below about this one, and make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll talk to you later. Look.